Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. So excited to talk to you a little bit about how branded calling boosts answer rates. We've seen a lot of frustrations out there in the industry around connecting with consumers, and really happy to be joining you today from NumHub and our partners at Infobip, diving into our BCID ecosystem and our solution. But first, wanted to introduce some of our speakers here today. Myself, I'm Drew Andersen, Director of Sales here at NumHub, joined by Shayne Madhavan. He's the Senior Solutions Engineer at Infobip, and Daniela Villamar, our Senior Product Manager from NumHub. Those of you who are NumHub customers, you've probably spoken with Daniela, but this team, happy to walk through this today because they are truly experts on BCID, and we hope that we're able to cover some exciting stuff that you could use and find beneficial. So today, what we're going to cover, we're going to really talk about some pain points that we see, problems with trust out there in the ecosystem, continuing to see answer rates decline on those outbound phone calls, introduce you to the BCID ecosystem and the solution that was developed and governed by our wonderful partners over at CTIA. We'll walk through how that works and cover how the adoption path is to get onboarded and registered and chat about next steps. So hopefully by the end of this session, you'll be able to understand what's changing out there in the industry. There's a lot of innovation going on around security, trust, and framework to support that. To know what BCID is and how it could actually fit within your outbound calling plan, whether it be your contact center, or on your one-to-one phone calls, and how it can help improve those answer rates. We'll clearly outline an adoption path on next steps so you have a clear understanding of what we can do to get started, and how we can support you. So we'll just dive into it here. Shayne, with you being a solutions engineer, I'm sure you hear a lot of frustrations from enterprise businesses, customers who are seeing that decrease in answer rates. Why don't you walk through kind of in detail some of those pain points that you've been hearing recently?
Yeah, thanks. So what we can do is let's probably start with the current state of outbound calling, right? So the first and foremost visible issue that we're seeing with answer rates are they keep dropping. So consumers are trained to ignore unknown numbers. That behavior is only increasing and getting more common as well. So even when the call is legitimate and expected, many customers are still not going to pick up the phone. Now, a big reason for this is mislabeling. So after the rollout of Stir Shaken, we're seeing a lot of legitimate business calls still being flagged as spam or potential spam. So authentication exists, but it doesn't always really translate directly into the trust on the device level. At the same time, legacy branded calling approaches also exist, right? There's CNAM, it's very widely used, but they're still easy to spoof and can be highly inconsistent. So this is also opening up the door for fraud or making it difficult for consumers to know which calls are actually real. And then this will also result in customer distrust, and that will just continuously grow. There's also the challenge of compliance, regulatory complexity. So these enterprises are now also having to navigate through these changing carrier rules, these regional regulations, different vetting requirements, all while also trying to maintain that call reach and performance. So as a solutions engineer here within the enterprise vertical, this is also one of the most common frustrations that we hear, right? You're compliant, authenticated, acting in good faith, but the calls are still not getting answered. And that's kind of where it becomes more clear that the issue isn't just volume or the calling strategy. It's really also about the trust and identity about how you're communicating within voice as well.
Yeah, I know I can speak as a consumer. If I see a phone call come across my cell phone and I don't recognize it, the chances of me picking up are usually pretty extremely low. But I mean, you must hear, I mean, what does that look like from an enterprise business, those costs of those misconnections?
Yeah, so this is also where the impact of those lower answer rates are going to be hitting the business bottom line, right? So customers are going to stop answering the calls. It's not just going to be a voice issue, it's also going to hit revenue, efficiency, the experience as well. So if we look at the first stat here, 78% of consumers have stopped answering unknown numbers altogether. So for enterprises, you can kind of focus on this translating directly into revenue leakage. This can include stuff like sales follow-ups, collections, renewals, time-sensitive offers, and many other cases, right? So then here we have the second stat, 58% of consumers are answering fewer than 10% of unknown calls. So in this case, you can kind of think of significant workflow delays. So processes that are relying on real-time voice. These things could be like transactional verification, delivery coordination is a common one, urgent customer outreach. So all these different processes could slow down, or even worse, they could break fully. And this is also going to force agents to retry those calls or maybe switch channels. But all in all, it's going to drive operational waste. The last point here, 51% of consumers report missing legitimate but unexpected calls. So this has a direct impact on the customer experience side of things, right? So customers become pretty frustrated. The issue remains unresolved longer. Many are probably going to eventually call back or even reach out through different support channels. And this is just going to lead to higher support costs and unneeded call volume as well. So when you add all of these things up, right, these missed calls, they just don't mean unanswered phones. They also are leading to slower business workflows, loss of revenue itself, as well as higher operational and contact center cost.
Got it. Yeah. Can be pretty impactful to the bottom line. I know those misconnections, even dealing with those personally from doctors' offices, banking can have a huge impact to the consumer and the enterprise. So, when people talk about branded calling, Shayne, they say, well, branded calling's been around for a while. There has been solutions. I mean, but why do those kind of legacy solutions that you mentioned with CNAM and out of band, I mean, uh, why do those fall short today?
Yeah, so this side really summarized it pretty well. So why are all these enterprises still struggling with outbound calling, even after they're investing with with the branding calling solution, right? So many existing solutions are classified as out of band. So they're actually relying on an external database. So this means that the branding isn't a part of the call itself. It's looked up separately. So if the data isn't available, updated, or even matched properly, the branding simply won't show up. Another huge point that we see is these inconsistent displays across the end user's device. So depending on the handset, the operating system, carrier, region, like so many of these different factors, the same call can look totally different on the end user side as well. Or even worse, it could actually go ahead and not even show the branding. So this is obviously going to result in a lack of consumer trust as well. All of these solutions are also still vulnerable to device level spam filters. So even if a call is branded or authenticated, it can still be blocked or labeled as spam before it even reaches the customer. Kind of goes back to that point I mentioned where it seems that you're doing everything right, but the call might still fail, which can be quite frustrating. And finally, there isn't really a unified standard. So the ecosystem is fragmented. There's so many different carriers, TSPs, third-party providers. They're all doing things kind of differently as well. So this makes it extremely difficult for these enterprises to scale the branded calling solution consistently or even measure the impact as well. So kind of the takeaways here is like the existing solutions, they're not necessarily designed for like core values like trust, those transparency and consistency. And this is kind of why we need a more integrated in-band approach to branded calling.
Got it. Well, I think maybe we could dive into that a little bit, when we're talking about out of band versus this new ecosystem and framework of an in-band branded call. Maybe you could speak to the details of what the key differences are.
Yeah, yeah. To understand why many branded calling approaches fall short, I think it'll help if we also look at how they're being implemented, right? So at the top of the slide here, we have an out-of-band approach. So this is how most legacy and third-party branding solutions also work today. You can kind of see the call travels through one path from the enterprise through the voice provider and into the mobile network. Now, while the branding information travels separately, and is being pulled from that external or third-party database down below. So this can also create a bunch of issues. And you can visualize how the process here is actually fragmented. So Each carrier or TSP will handle branding slightly differently. So the results can vary by network, geography, the device, kind of like those different factors that we mentioned. And the enterprises are not going to get that consistent experience, especially at scale or across different regions as well. Another huge point here is that branding is detached from the calling itself, so it's easier to spoof. These bad actors can exploit these systems, putting consumers at risk, and of course, damaging the trust in actual legitimate enterprise brands. There's also another factor of the major visibility and measurement gap. So enterprises would be paying per call. There isn't a clear confirmation that the branding was delivered, but you may still be paying for it. You'll not always know how it appears on the device, or even whether it influences the call outcome. So in many cases, you're going to be paying regardless of the delivery, or even the impact itself. Now, if you compare that with the latter half of the slide here, we can see the in-band approach. So here, the call and the brand you can see are traveling together. They're cryptographically signed and verified as a part of the entire call flow. Branding isn't being looked up separately, so it's built and validated by the networks as well. And on top of this, you're only going to be paying for successfully delivered calls within the in-band approach. So this is significantly going to reduce spoofing risk. It's going to improve consistency across carriers, enabling clear, measurable reporting as well, so you can actually access the data on if that branding was successfully delivered, and then tie it back to your answer rates and your business outcomes as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that key piece that you mentioned, only paying for when it works, is crucial for enterprise businesses. I know I've gotten some feedback and frustrations about paying even if your call is marked as spam. So, in-band seems like the way to go. Thanks, Shayne. Well, talking about in-band, maybe we'll pass this over to Daniela. I mean, now introduce BCID, the ecosystem and what CTIA has created and what BCID can provide. Walk us through that.
Sure. Well, BCID is part of an industry-led initiative supported by CTIA. That's going to be the trade association representing the U.S. wireless communication industry. And CTIA works closely with carriers, technology providers, and ecosystem partners to establish standards that not just improve trust, but security across voice communications. And because BCID is built within this CTIA-led ecosystem, it isn't tied to a single vendor or carrier. So instead, it is designed to enable a standardized and trusted framework for branded calling across the whole industry, helping the enterprises reach customers more reliably, regardless of the network. And at a high level, BCID allows a business to display verified information directly on the customer phone call when the call is being ringing. Instead of just showing a phone number, the call can display the brand name, the company logo, and even the reason for the call. So as we can see in the slide, a customer might see BIP business and the call reason customer service, along with the company logo right there on the screen. And this immediately will create that recognition and trust, right? Which is critical in an environment where consumers are increasingly hesitant to answer unknown calls. And it is super important to understand that BCID is powered by the combination of steer-shaken call authentication and rich call data, or RCD. And together, this technology is going to provide both identity verification and branded information delivery, helping ensure that the call is legitimate and that the recipient know who is calling and why. And even in some cases, such as T-Mobile subscribers, customers can even see a verified indicator next to the call that we can see just right there in the picture, which will further reinforce that the call has been authenticated properly. Also, another important benefit is transparency, and I do know everybody is looking forward to work with transparency because BCID is going to allow enterprises and providers to track each call and understand what information was actually displayed on the handset, providing the real visibility into call delivery and branding performance. So the result is simple but super powerful. We see greater trust, we see higher answer rates, and strong protection for enterprise brand reputation.
Got it. Well, thank you, Daniela. I know this is a newer ecosystem and a new framework. I mean, why don't you walk us through what we've seen as far as the overall ecosystem performance and demand that we see out there?
Well, BCID adoption has been growing rapidly. Since the ecosystem launched in October 2024, more than 46 million BCID calls have been already originated. And what's particularly important here is that these calls are not limited to a single network. BCID calls are being delivered across all three national carriers, and over 8.5 million calls have already been confirmed by T-Mobile and Verizon Wireless. So the chart you see on the right illustrates how quickly this adoption has been accelerating. What started as an early ecosystem testing has turned now into a significant production traffic, with the number of branded calls increasing month after month. Also, Verizon was recently onboarded last year in early November, and we can see from there how the calls have been increasing since they onboarded to the ecosystem. And this growth is going to reflect a very clear industry shift. Enterprises, carriers, and technology partners are recognizing that traditional caller ID or legacy branding solutions simply aren't enough anymore. So instead, the industry is moving towards a standardized and secure ecosystem that is going to allow verified brand calls to be delivered across all of the networks with transparency and trust. And as you can see here, BCID is quickly becoming the framework that will enable that.
Awesome. And how about some of the impacts to the enterprise themselves? I mean, what are we hearing out there on the impacts of utilizing BCID?
Beyond adoption, where we are also seeing strong evidence that branded calling is delivering meaningful results for organizations. And according to a Morning Consult survey conducted in November 2025 and shared by CTIA, more than 90% of the organizations using branded calling reported meaningful impact across several key areas. First, we have improving call answer rates, which is often the most immediate benefit, of course. When customers recognize who is calling and why, they're far more likely to pick up that call. Second, we can see building trust in call legitimacy. With spoofing and spam calls becoming more and more common, consumers are increasing cautiously to answer that call. So verified branded calls help restore that trust. Third, we get organizations reporting that they have improved sales conversion rates, especially for those customer engagement scenarios like appointment confirmations, service follow-ups, and support callbacks. So just imagine that power, right, to really be able to talk to your customer. We're also looking at strong impact in fraud prevention, since authenticated and verified calls make it significantly harder for bad actors to impersonate legitimate businesses. And finally, well, branded calling helps protect company brand reputation, ensuring that legitimate outreach is clearly differentiated from the spam or the scam calls. And taking all of this together, these results basically highlight why the enterprises are increasingly investing in solutions like BCID, because it directly improves both the customer engagement and the brand trust in outbound communications. But I'm pretty sure that maybe a lot of you are wondering what's really behind those results, and it comes down to a single question that will be, what makes consumers comfortable answering a call from an unknown number? Exactly. This next data point helps us illustrate that answer. Building on the data that we just looked right now, this slide highlights what actually motivates consumer to answer a call. So what we see is clear caller information makes a big difference. In fact, around 70% of consumers say that they are likely to answer an unknown call when the caller's identity is clearly displayed. And it's not just one element that matters. When customers see things like a verified indicator, the caller name, the reason for the call, or even the company logo, it's going to give you immediate context about who is reaching out. And that small amount of context can make a big difference, because instead of just looking at a unknown number, the customer understands who is calling and why, which naturally will increase the likelihood that they will pick up. And in this case, for enterprise, that translates directly into better engagement, that everybody is looking forward to have that. Fewer missed interactions, because of course, every time you pick up a call, that's money already flying for you, and more successful customer communication.
Yeah, I can imagine just that the increase in answer rate of just 10% could have a huge impact to those enterprises. So BCID, it's like an ecosystem, Daniela, that has many roles and what it can deliver. And why don't you walk us through kind of how the ecosystem is set up and who is a participant?
Of course. course. Well, BCID is designed to be, like you mentioned, the most secure and trusted branded calling ecosystem for enterprises. And I do love the word ecosystem. It is not a group or just some couple of companies. No, it's a full ecosystem that everybody can join. And it creates value for three key groups. First, we have the enterprises, because BCID is going to provide a simple on-ramp through authorized partners, allowing business to onboard quickly into the ecosystem without needing to build their own infrastructure, because we all know, or maybe we have been there, that building something new from start, it's a little bit tedious. And once onboarded, enterprises can deliver branded calls across multiple carriers, ensuring their customers see trusted brand information regardless of which network they're on. Second, we have carriers and ecosystem agents. BCID is going to provide this secure platform for delivery and settlement, ensuring that every participant in the ecosystem, like we have right now, onboarding agents, vetting agents, signing agents, and even service providers, operates within a standardized and trusted framework. And finally, of course, we have the call recipients, the consumer themselves. BCID is going to ensure that when their phone rings, they receive a clear and trusted information about who is calling and why before they answer. So overall, BCID isn't just about displaying a brand, because it could be like that, but it's more about creating this trusted environment for outbound communications across the entire ecosystem. It is a big change for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And how about diving more into the different roles in the ecosystem itself? Maybe you could speak on to what CTIA has created and what we're all participating in right now.
Of course, and that's my favorite part. Well, so we call it an open and trusted ecosystem. And one of the biggest reasons BCID stands apart from legacy branded calling solutions is the ecosystem model behind it. So BCID is built as an open and transparent and standard-based framework that brings together multiple participants across the telecom ecosystem. At a high level, the process begins with the enterprise registering for the service through an authorized partner. That partner will help guide the business through onboarding and secure their information is properly submitted into the ecosystem. From there, the enterprise data goes through rigorous vetting and validation, confirming that the business identity, phone numbers, branding information, everything that you add on is legitimate. And once verified, the call is signed using stir-shaken authentication combined with rich call data, which is going to securely carry that branded information alongside the call. And finally, well, service providers and carriers such as Infobip in this case, they can deliver that call to the handset, where the branded information can be displayed to the recipient. So this structured process ensures that end-to-end security, right? The accountability and interoperability across the network, which is something that many early branded calling solutions struggled to achieve right away. And we have been just doing that since the start.
Yeah. So if I'm an enterprise and I'm looking at this ecosystem, I mean, what are the key differences that I should care about?
Of course, the first, independent vetting and verification. Enterprise numbers, brand names, logos, and call reasons are all verified by authorized partners before entering into the ecosystem. So this is going to help ensure that not only legitimate businesses are able to participate, but protecting both consumers and the brand reputation. Second, we get the cross-network coverage and interoperability. Like I mentioned before, BCID is built on industry collaboration and stir-shaken standards. That's going to allow calls to be delivered across multiple networks rather than just being limited to a single carrier or proprietary platform. And third, we get the confirmed call delivery reporting. With BCID, business can actually receive confirmation that their branded call information was displayed on that handset. And this provides a level of transparency that many legacy solutions don't offer at all. In other words, the enterprise gained the verified identity. They gain the broader reach across the networks. They have measurable visibility into how their branded calls are performed. And those capabilities are exactly what makes BCID a much stronger and more trusted approach for branded calling. And I do think that with that, Drew, you could walk through how the enterprise can begin participating with BCID and how the adoption looks like.
Absolutely. So, yeah, many of you in this call, I was saying, well, where do I start? Right. So, looking at the ecosystem, I know it can be complex. You automatically go to, do I have to set up relationships with an onboarding agent, a vetting agent, a signing agent, a service provider? And that's where you have a lot of flexibility to participate with BCID. So, the key to BCID is that ecosystem and making sure that you're working through an authorized partner, such as Infobip. Infobip has the ability to onboard, vet, sign those calls, get people set up quickly. And one thing that we really encourage enterprise businesses to do is, this is not something you just add to every single phone number your business has, right? You want to look at your phone numbers, look at those high value outbound connections that you're trying to connect with. So anything that has to do with revenue tied to it, or missed revenue, appointment scheduling, confirmations, callback queues for customer support, collections even. So there's all sorts of wide solutions that you could look at on different business units to have BCID, and really look at your inventory and figure out, okay, what are my high values, and kind of look at that within your architecture today. Also, having what you want to display on that phone. So looking at the company name you want, the logo you want to use, the call reason for verification. And you can have multiple call reasons for a business. We've already seen a lot of that in the ecosystem, so you can customize that, have the flexibility. And we've seen a lot of businesses starting with just a few numbers, right? Launching a little pilot of their own, getting some numbers set up in the BCID ecosystem, and running their own kind of proof of concept and the impact it can have before going all in with BCID. So just some kind of things that are helpful to have handy. Like I mentioned, the phone numbers you want to brand, caller display name for the company, the logos that you want to submit, and then the approved call reason. There is a predetermined list of approved call reasons, but there's also the ability to customize that reason. And then any verification information you have, just to prove that you are who you are. And we can share with you kind of the vetting requirements and things that the ecosystem takes a look at before you get onboarded with BCID. One of the great things about working with a partner of ours, such as Infobip, they have the ability to onboard, vet, sign the calls, all built into their current platform. So if you are an Infobip customer, that's great. You're already way ahead. You can essentially reach out to your account manager, log into the portal, create your business identity, submit your application for verification. Once that's done, then the vetting process will start. That's where we're helping out in the background, getting those enterprise businesses vetted and then provisioned within the ecosystem, which can typically take about 2 to 10 business days, which is much faster than any of you have ever dealt with campaign registry or 10 DLC. We've really streamlined that vetting process for our ecosystem, and we're happy to do so. And then once that's provisioned, you're all set and making branded phone calls. So it's a quick solution to implement should you want to, and we can make it easy on you. So if you're an Infobip customer, strongly encourage you to reach out to your account manager. If you're a NumHub customer joining us today and not yet an Infobip customer, please do connect with us. We might be able to look at maybe slicing off some of your traffic today to participate in BCID if your current service provider is not set up. Or if you're neither a NumHub or Infobip customer today, just please, reach out. We're happy to set up an intro call, learn a little bit more about your current architecture and how we could get you live quickly. So that kind of wraps up the details of our discussion today. I really wanted to dive into some Q&A that we've gotten here. So first, I've seen a couple questions come across. Maybe Daniela, let's see if you could take it. How is the confirmed display measured and reported? Maybe you can walk us through on the reporting of that. What does the enterprise see when it comes to reporting?
Well, the confirmed display refers to verifying that the branded information, such as the display name, the logo, and the call reason, was actually shown, right, on that recipient's handset. So within the BCID ecosystem, this is measured through confirmation data returned from participating networks after the call is delivered. And that information can be then included in reporting dashboards, allowing enterprises and service providers to see when the branded calls were successfully displayed to recipients. And this level of visibility is important because it's going to allow your business to measure the real impact of the branded calling campaigns, rather than simply knowing that a call was placed and that's it. You are going to be able indeed to see if the logo was displayed, if the call reason was displayed, or maybe just the name was displayed. You will see everything. That's why we call it a transparent ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you. And how about, I got one here. Can I create my own custom call reason? So I mentioned that there was some approved lists. Can we provide some customization? Maybe Daniela, you can take that one too.
Yes, definitely. We're more than open to check your custom call reasons. Part of the vetting process, we do need to make sure that those custom call reasons are not violating any FCC requirement or even shaft content. Most likely we'll accept it, but of course, if it's a call reason that everybody else on the ecosystem will be able to use as well, we can add it to the pre-approved list.
Yes, well, thank you. And then Shayne, maybe you could take this one. This is my current carrier is not in the BCID ecosystem, but what are my options?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the good thing is, at least within the US to start, we're just waiting on AT&T at the moment. So there are still ongoing discussions with them being added as well. But even if there is a concern around a lack of a carrier, we can still kind of go through the implementation of having a branded calling solution and then have like more of a failover. So let's say in the case that this specific branded calling solution did not take place, we could automatically either fail over to a regular voice call, or we could even use an omni-channel approach where you have different options of using a verified sender, right? There's other still channels that we can use to support this case.
And I think also too, like for those joining that have a carrier, important questions to ask them would be, are they aware of BCID and this ecosystem if they're planning on participating? And if not, we're happy to put you in touch with service providers that can support you in that. We've already seen a few enterprises slice off some traffic for those important outbound calls, like I mentioned before, starting with that POC of a few numbers and really just gauging the impact with itself. Due to that reporting that Daniela mentioned, you can't see exactly what was displayed on that device for that phone call and match that to your call records and what your agents or contact centers saying about those answer rates to launch your own proof of concept. Which that kind of leads us to our next question. I mean, let's see here. Daniela, again, what is this? Here's a good one. What does the vetting process require and how long does it take?
Great question. And the vetting process is designed to ensure that only legitimate businesses, right, can participate in this BCID ecosystem. So we do make sure that this vetting process, it is part of our compliance. But like you mentioned before, please forget about the vetting process of 10DLC or shortcodes because it doesn't compare at all. This vetting process, it is basically just asking the enterprise provider give, for example, some entity details like the legal business name, the federal employee ID number, the business identifications, and so on, along with the branding elements that will be the telephone numbers, the display name, the logo, and the call reason. And that information is reviewed by the authorized vetting partner to confirm that the business identity and numbers are legitimate and authorized to place these branded calls. But just like you mentioned, in most cases, the review process takes about 2 to 10 days, depending on the complexity of the application. But the main goal here is ensuring the strong identity verification while still keeping the onboarding process relatively fast for enterprises.
Thank you. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions in here. If you have one, feel free to use that Q&A quickly. We could throw and answer any urgent questions you might have. If not, we'll be definitely sharing out a recording of this to share with your team members, and we can chat about next steps. So if there's not, let's see if any other questions come in. I'm not yet seeing any already. Well, again, thank you all for jumping on today and joining us. We really appreciate your time to learn more about this BCID ecosystem, what CTI has built, and how we can participate. Like I said, if you want to learn more, dive into more detailed discussions, feel free to reach out to myself or Shayne, even Daniela. We're here to help point you in the right direction and see how we could get those answer rates improved by utilizing BCID. So thank you again for your time. Thank you, Shayne, Daniela, for the insight. It was a great discussion today, and we look forward to seeing you all again on future webinars.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.